Well, let's now go to the latest on the South Sudanese peace process. Khartoum mediators have confirmed that South Sudanese opposition leader Riek Machar and rebel groups will sign the latest draft of the peace deal. This follows assurance from the Juba government that a power-sharing accord inked earlier this month will be honored by all parties. President Salva Kiir and Machar agreed to a ceasefire earlier this month. The peace deal is aimed at ending years of civil war that's left tens of thousands dead and millions displaced. Get more insight on this now. I'm joined by CGTN's Patrick Oyet. He's joining me now from on the line from Juba. Patrick, do you know what brought about Riek Machar's change of heart after last night's dramatic events?
Yes, it is the refusal by Riek Machar and his group to sign the peace deal occurred, of course, yesterday, and mediators continue to engage with them to ensure that they change their mind about this. And the mediators say that what happened is that they as mediators have accepted to incorporate the demands by the opposition into the agreement. And those demands are, one, constitution-making process. This is where they were disagreeing. The opposition under Riek Machar say that what they want is a national constitutional assembly. So the government of Juba, of course, is saying they want a constitutional review process or commission. So now the mediators say they will incorporate this into the agreement that they did not want to sign. Another issue is, of course, the issue of quorum, on the executive and parliament. The opposition are saying the quorum for ministers to have a meeting should be increased from the previous 23. Juba has refused. Now the mediators say they will incorporate this into the agreement. And then the issue of number of states, the opposition are saying they disagree with the issue of 32 states. They want, if possible, 10 states. Now this issue is also going to be incorporated into the agreement. And then the issue of security, of course. So if all these issues are incorporated into the agreement, what happens next? What happens next is that the agreement is supposed to be tabled before IGAD Council of Ministers. When this agreement now is tabled before IGAD Council of Ministers, it will now be the IGAD Council of Ministers to decide on what to actually go forward with, because the parties have failed to agree on these issues. And when the IGAD Council of Ministers pass this agreement, then it will go now to the IGAD heads of state and government. So basically the reason as to why Riek Machar and his group have now accepted to sign this deal is because whatever they were demanding is now said to be incorporated into the agreement. That's the reason mediators give us.
Patrick, the deal may be going ahead on paper as we speak, but has last night's threat not to sign by Riek Machar dampened the spirits of the people in South Sudan?
Yes and no. The problem of South Sudan is that people are very much divided on these issues. If you look at the common people who are suffering because of this peace not being in place, the people who are in internally displaced people's camps, the people who are in refugee camps, they want peace now. They don't care about who will have what powers in the government, who will hold what position, what is it about forum. They don't care about peace. They want peace so that they can go back to their homes, they go and carry out their agricultural activities, send their children to school, move freely along the roads. They don't care about all these details that politicians talk about. However, there are people who think and say that they would like actually these politicians to iron out these issues before, issues of whether they are quorum, whether the issue of the number of states, the issue of constitution making, because they have experience in 2015 when a peace deal was signed, and eventually in 2016 Riek Machar returned home. He assumed the position of first vice president. The government could not move forward with any program because they started disagreeing on some of these issues. Who should be where? Who should be the advisor to the president? Who should do this? Who should do that? So there was disagreement, and the government could not move forward with any program. So if they do not agree on these issues and they just return home because they want to show the world that they have agreed and they are going to bring peace to South Sudan, then even when they return, there will still not be peace around because they will not move any program of the government forward. So there is divided opinion about how the process should go, whereas there are those who think it must now come to an end and bring peace back home. There are those who also say, let it take some time, so long as they can iron out the issue, so that when they come back to Juba, there will be no more disagreements and no more bloodshed, no more going back to war. So that that's how the situation is in Juba.
All right, Patrick, you're joining us there on the line from Juba. Let's now go to The Hague, where closing arguments are expected in the trial of Congolese warlord Bosco Ntaganda. The trial is drawing to a close after 5 years. It's seen as a vital case at the International Criminal Court, especially after former Democratic Republic of Congo Vice President Jean-Pierre Bemba's conviction was overturned and he was recently released after 10 years in prison. CGTN's Jack Parrott reports.
Crimes against civilians.
Showing little emotion, Bosco Ntaganda listened to how his troops killed pregnant women with machetes and conducted a series of horrendous attacks against civilians in the Ituri province of the Democratic Republic of Congo in 2002 and 2003.
The truth is that Bosco Ntaganda did not engage in any sincere peace initiatives. And he knew exactly what his troops were doing at all times, because he planned, coordinated, and ordered these attacks.
The man known as the Terminator has been on trial for over 4 years at the International Criminal Court on 13 charges of crimes against humanity and war crimes. The charges include forcing women into sexual slavery and enlisting child soldiers, as well as brutal murders. Over 800 people were slaughtered in the mineral-rich Ituri province during the time frame of the case. The defence is also delivering its closing statements in this case. Mr. Ntaganda insists that he never attacked the civilian population, but rather protected them. The panel of 3 ICC judges will weigh up the evidence over the coming months once the closing statements are completed. For the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, a solid conviction in this case is of vital importance for her legacy. That's after the ICC Appeals Chamber unexpectedly overturned the conviction of former DRC Vice President Jean-Pierre Bemba. Observers say it's time for the Office of the Prosecutor to reflect on how it brings a case to trial.
The prosecutor has had a streak of bad luck or bad evidence, depending on which way you look at it. And the Bemba acquittal coming on the heels of the previous withdrawal of dismissal of the cases against Kenyatta and against Ruto. I think the prosecutor has to get this right.
Ntaganda brands himself as a soldier and not a criminal, but many of his own troops have testified against him during this trial. The judge's verdict is likely to come before the end of the year and could carry a sentence of up to 30 years. Jack Parrott, CGTN, Brussels.
Let's now return to our headline story and South Sudan's fragile peace process. Last night, rebel leader Riek Machar threatened to derail the peace process, refusing to sign the draft. He later changed his tune, putting the process back on track. Let's explore this story further now with Dr. Hassan Khaneje. He's an international relations analyst from the Horn Institute. Dr. Khaneje, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. As we've just mentioned, opposition leader Riek Machar had threatened not to sign the peace process, but the peace deal is now ongoing. He has accepted to sign. So it does look like the relationship between Riek Machar and Salva Kiir is quite fragile. What will it ensure then? What will it take to ensure that the peace process is on track and that that deal comes to fruition?
I think part of the conflict in South Sudan will be fueled by the mistrust, especially between the leading protagonists, who is Riek Machar and Salva Kiir. And what we saw, the refusal to sign to the peace deal, was also in part informed by the fact that there are certain things, demands that Riek Machar had made, but that he felt were not honored. Now, after ironing out those issues, I think he went ahead and signed the deal. Now, it's going to be important because of the existing mistrust that the country embarks on confidence-building measures. And I think IGAD should be playing a very central role in doing that, because parties by themselves, they won't be doing that, especially given the history of animosity between the 2 leading protagonists.
Looking at what both sides require for this peaceful transition, including a rather bloated cabinet here, we do know, of course, that South Sudan's economic situation is quite fragile. They've been at war now since 2013. The economy hasn't picked up yet. Is this not going to compromise on service delivery and governance to the population?
Yeah, with the inflation of about 200% and a budget deficit of 50%, this, of course, is going to be unsustainable. And given just the number of members of parliament and the cabinet, it's so huge to support the for the economy of South Sudan to support it. It's going certainly to influence service delivery. However, sometimes, you know, that's the price of peace. Now, going forward, I think that has to be revised. And elections at some point needs to be held so you can be able to revise government, make it a lot leaner, to be able, for an economy as thin as South Sudan, to be able to afford in sustaining it. Outside that, I think most of the resources are going to be channeled towards government and not for the population, which will be unfortunate.
It would be unfortunate indeed, but of course, even as we speak, there's still a humanitarian crisis there, and millions of South Sudanese refugees are still being hosted in neighboring Uganda. Many of them are still expecting unwillingness, though, to return to South Sudan, wondering if the peace will finally hold. So how long will it take for the process, like what we're seeing? How long will it take for it to start working so that South Sudanese refugees can return home?
I think on average, South Sudanese cares about issues of bread and butter and safety. And if there is a recognition that the government is working towards restoring security in the country, and South Sudanese can go about their business without fear of the unknown, I think it's going to build a whole lot more confidence in the refugees, not just in Uganda, but also in Kenya, to actually make an effort and go back and rebuild their country.
All right, Dr. Hassan Khaneja, thank you very much for joining us here.
Thanks for having me.
On Africa Live.